Welcome to the Breathing the Life podcast. And look, there's Bon Me, Dan Kang. I mean, come on.
You look amazing.
I'm just here for the Bon Me. So sorry.
I'm just here for the Bon Me. I was like,
Yeah,
Dan,
all here for the Bon Me. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you. There's a lot to cover here. Obviously, you are the CEO and founder of Berify.io, which has been really helpful to us as we launch Breathe Into Life. But we get a lot of questions about your technology. But really, the concept here is to focus on resilience and why you are where you're at, why we're at where we're at, and how we all sort of collectively got there. Because really, Breathing Life is to support people's mindset into becoming more positive in the way they approach everything they do in their life. And we know that you have done that at some point or some points, and we would love to talk about that. Feel free to explain. We know that you're in technology. We know you're a very successful CEO. Feel free to explain any of that, how you got to that point, if you would like. But that's really where we're coming from for this company, for what we're doing with Breathing Life. And we think that it is very beneficial. Dan Kang, everyone.
Hello.
Don Martin.
Thank you. Thank you again for giving us the space and also like the time. I know it's really valuable to you. Your time is precious, so we appreciate it. And you look so good in our cozy, Breathing to Life, exaggerated logo.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years in the fashion side of my previous life, so wearing this so comfortable, good job.
Thank
Very
you.
nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
How do you guys know each other?
You know, it's funny because we came and met each other in the fashion industry. I think she was with Pacific Sunwear at the time, and we were running our OEM manufacturing.
Okay.
So yeah, we crossed paths briefly, but yeah, made an impact a while ago. Yeah.
What were you doing?
I was the CEO of a company that was an OEM manufacturer for the fashion industry.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember Dan very specifically because he was one of the pioneers of bringing manufacturing into the Western Hemisphere. At the time, there were a lot of movements like between like domestic to overseas, and so there was just like such a big gap in between. You know, domestically, like we were getting more expensive, and then overseas the lead time was so much longer. So my dyer basically broke that. Like they broke that pattern, and they gave us the option, Pacific Sunwear, to go to the Western Hemisphere. Lead time is cut shorter. The cost wasn't that much more expensive, so it was like really a solution to what was happening.
So for point of reference, like for people that don't know what my dyer is, what is it exactly? What was it exactly? Yeah.
We started out, well, I started off in high school when my father and our family wanted to open up a dye house, and a dye house was a company that actually does this type of work. Back then, it was the denim craze and garment dyeing, and so we were one of the 3 dye houses in Los Angeles. And so while I was going to high school, back then we didn't have internet, so you still had to go to the library and understand plumbing, electrical, construction. So how do you build a massive wash house? So I was fortunate enough to be able to be thrown into that mix and help my senior year in high school, help build a small facility. And then while I was going to college, USC, go Trojans, we were able to expand that business over the years, but ended up wanting to get into manufacturing because I saw kind of a gap in the market.
Okay. And
long story short, while everybody was running to Asia, I said, well, I'm gonna stay here since I don't like to go with the masses. And so there was a gap where if you go to Asia, your cost is brought down, but there was an issue with timing. It usually anywhere from 180 days on out to it could be forever. And right around that time, we're thinking, we only have 3 seasons in fashion. So what if we increase the seasons by more faster market testing? And right at that time, fast fashion was born. So we're proud of what we did, but we also kind of look back and go, wow, this may not have been the best thing to do for society. There's been a lot of waste in terms of fast fashion, but again, so all we can do is not regret it, but fix certain things that we've done by balancing the vibrations of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's how we ended up into the manufacturing. We were quite successful in helping a lot of brands and retailers, and so it was mutual success.
For sure.
Interesting.
For sure. Yes, I do remember my dad was one of the top vendors that we had in our supply chain at Pakistan, and you were with them for many years.
Sure.
Yeah, many years. So you basically left or sold the company.
That's correct. Right after COVID, there was a point in time where we did reach some tremendous numbers, close to $1 billion a year in revenues, and so we were doing really well. But there was the writing on the wall, and looking back, and this is why I'm here where I am, is right then people thought e-commerce apparel would never happen, but it was transitioning. More and more people were willing to buy apparel online. And so how did that affect us? It really didn't, because we were a manufacturer, but there was something that was happening underground, which was, I'm sure everyone knows Shein, Temu, some of the platforms from Asia, and we realized that they weren't in the apparel game. They used the apparel for a great resource of rewards, but the true thing was they were able to get the consumer sentiments and utilize that, and it was very valuable to them, and it still is. And so I thought, it's time to pivot, because I think the main thing is not the main thing anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would love to go down, but you mentioned a couple of things that I'm already my mind works really fast. So, but let's talk for a second about that. So, how did you come to that realization? Was that through somebody tipped you off, told you, industry insight, or was that your own intuition? Speak to that a little bit if you don't mind, because I think people realize they do hear an inner voice, they do receive a message, but they don't pay attention. And so we're very much trying to get people to pay attention. So speak to that a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure. I think in my position of where I was in the company, I had to have a broad, wider perspective of what's going on. During that time, the time gap between Asia and the US was starting to shorten. They were starting to get better at it. Their pricing point still did not increase. Apparel was one commodity that it didn't go up in price over the years. It actually started to decline. And so the competitiveness was, what's going on here? So I think us humans, we receive a lot of information and sentiment, and they'll use it as called data, but the reality is those are all intuition, and it builds some opinions of what's happening, and it becomes factual at a certain point,
Right. So would you say that your company then was comprised of people that were also paying attention to the metrics and to the information coming in? Let's do it in two questions. How big was your company, for example, at that time?
At the time, we at our U.S. facility, we had over 400 persons, and then Central America, which was Guatemala City, anywhere from, let's say, average about 3,000 persons within the factories. And then we did move production to Asia too, to be in line with certain other manufacturing. So globally, we're a pretty good sized company.
That's fascinating. Number two, so then 400 people are picking up on signals that there's change occurring, or whatever the breakdown was, there's a change happening across an industry. That's a lot of people.
Sure.
And so I think something that Donna and I have spoken about is the collective consciousness that we all share, and the collective energy in this space of okay, if you're not feeling great, it's but this person is. It's better that they are going to help you feel good, and they're going to raise you up. It's very similar to a metric, pay attention. There's change happening. So I would love to hear what you think about that, because you've obviously created a very successful are very successful companies around that, and everybody's very positive, very smiling when we walk in this amazing space you have, right? That's one thing that I noticed. So I could only imagine what it was like, my diary. I don't imagine a bunch of people like, oh my God, I gotta go to my job again. Oh, and cry and complain. It was more about performance and productive. My question for you is, how do you get to that? How do you get people to like critically mass to get to that place?
Well, I see where this opinion of positive thinking and feel good, it's great, but for me, I kind of take a different position on it, because those are the rewards. Feeling positive, and the reward system is basically a reward. We want to get there, but if it's always constant, it's not a reward anymore.
Right.
It's
Agreed. Agreed.
It's achieving it, and so to do those things, we actually have to put ourselves at the edge, and to understand how to get to the edges, it's painful. And so when we do have certain emotional depressions and stuff, we all go through it, and if we don't, then that means we're not conscious of where we want to go. I like cars. So if you're in cars and you're racing on a track or any form of competition, if you can't take your emotions and your mind to the edge, you're not really pressing yourself to really get to where God had intended us to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at I don't know if you're religious or any form of religion, it's always going to the edge and finding that despair, but overcoming it is the reward. And so I think for all of us, don't fear the pain, but harness it and embrace it. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that more.
So Louise has this saying, without pain, there's no consciousness.
Yeah.
He says it too.
I didn't quite. I mean, that's not my saying, but
It's
yes,
not-
I use
but
it.
you do like say it a lot
I
to
do.
me and
Absolutely.
to a lot of people.
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
something that I remember,
That's right.
and I always felt like, okay, so do you have to get to pain to be able to like gain consciousness? That's something that I feel differently. I feel like we can gain consciousness while we're right in between, right? When yes, true, I do believe that when you get to the edge, whatever that edge is, your edge is different than mine, Louise's, but we get there and we go, okay, I gotta do something different, and that's where we want to help folks come back when you're feeling really like desperate enough to like come back to the.
Isn't that the reward though? So
Yeah.
so to come to this peripheral hitting rock bottom, everyone has a different rock bottom. But the people that I've been around in being able to challenge themselves and really take it further on the edge are people that are able to control their own selves of being consciously more stable, less higher frequencies, but being able to plateau and say, okay, yeah, this is bad. Someone's passed away. I'm ill. All these things in life that we become so, we struggle through.
Yeah.
Being able to say to yourself, hey, tomorrow's going to be another day and we're going to get through this. It's just, these are just signals telling us what we need to maybe adjust. And you were asking me about our company. Yeah, we always pushed everybody to the edge, because if you're complacent, you never extend yourself, and it becomes,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I worked in a lot of companies that, I did go to my, max, right, to test my ability to be able to, support the company. But it wasn't for those things, I would have not learned how to be better at my career, be better at what I do, and be better for myself. So I think a lot of times that fear, right, so there's another big component to why we don't do well or why we don't feel good is we stay in the fear space too long. Do you have techniques? Do you have ways where you're okay, I'm in fear space, how do I move out of that, and how long do I stay here for? Can you speak more to that? I would love to hear that.
Well, those are all coping mechanisms of us, and I think what's helped me is not to fear the failure, but understand it quickly and pivot. we all fail every day.
Okay, so how did you have a practice that got you that result that you started seeing like that's fear, I'm going to pivot?
Sure. Well, I think you got to reflect, based on my age, if you think about when a child is born, the first thing they do is cry.
Yeah.
And because there's a need. And so if you kind of see the contrast of where we are, some people never learn how to stop crying and doing for themselves.
Okay.
But I think there is that divide of as we get more exercise and we exercise our mind and our bodies, there's three parts of us, our spirit, our mind, and our bodies. And that balancing of trying to understand ourselves best, because we'll make mistakes, but learning how to say, hey, same process in, same result out, right? So trying to understand, hey, we shouldn't go through this vicious cycle, but learn from it and quickly learn from it. I think we rely too much on external people's judgmental thoughts because we're the harshest judgment to ourselves.
Yes.
And learning to say that whole time of forgiving, saying, yeah, that kind of sucked. But picking your pants up, pulling your pants back up and doing it is probably the part that I would tell all our viewers is that you're gonna fail. But you only need to get it done well once.
That's right.
And so, yeah.
And to me,
Powerful.
you want to fail a lot, right? Because if you want growth, if you want learning, if you want to like get to the next level, it's like you want to fail. It's not to be afraid of failing, but like let me try it.
Absolutely.
If I fail, that's all right. I'm gonna pick my pants back up. I'm gonna go and do it again. I'm gonna do it differently. And I think that's really the purpose of like why we exist. Is like we want to remind people that when they've forgotten, or when they're feeling really defeated, or they're not like feeling so great that one day. You know? But yeah, so for somebody like you, where like it feels like you're on all the time, right? Like there's a lot of demands, there's a lot of like things that are being asked of you.
Decision making.
Like we feel,
leading.
we feel like it was so important to speak to someone that feels fear and
Exactly.
and not
It's
so
human,
great.
because we're all human at the end of the day. It's just, we all are human. We're all going to bleed. Going back and not to. But I want to go back to a little bit of how, was there a technique, was there a way that you sort of like got to that place where you recognize fear? Because I think that's very powerful and useful to people that are being tuned into this, because they don't even know where to begin necessarily. Some do, absolutely, but some don't.
Well, first of all, definitely want to put a disclaimer out there is make mistakes, but you are accountable.
Yes.
Our company, Berify and Touchpoint, our focus has been accountability and transparency. This is why we use our technologies to, I think our whole world has forgotten accountability. Due to technology, we've been able to kind of shield ourselves and therefore we're not accountable. Therefore, I'm putting that disclaimer out there because I say make mistakes and correct it quickly, but understand there will be repercussions if you do the unconscionables, and so it doesn't mean freely go out there and murder, steal, and cheat, and then deal with it. But to the coping side of things is in our senses, I think everybody has it. Some people are more in tune to it than others, because the last thing we want to do is feel these senses, understanding and feeling that nervousness or being quick to see these peripheral things happening in your life. It adds up, and then to some people it's too stressful, so their coping mechanisms to shut down and go into depression. I think you do want a good surrounding of friends and family around you. I think that support system is very important. Don't look for just people that's going to blow smoke up your proverbial butt to just make you feel better, because that doesn't solve things. I think you need people around you that you respect and that you communicate. And whether it be judgmental or deflective, I get into conversation with some very good friends that I could be very defensive, but it does come back to, hey, maybe I need some self-realization. But isn't that iron sharpening iron?
Wow, fascinating from the perspective.
To add on to what you're saying, I think oftentimes we feel criticized, right? Because we want to do our best, and like you said, we're like our own major critic. So we don't take it personally, and we look at it from the lens of like, this is coming from love. This is coming from me,
We hope,
learning.
yeah.
Right.
There's some people that don't
Right.
do it for love.
And so you have to be the judge of that
Sure.
too. You have to know who you're surrounding yourself with and ask comments. And I don't know if you got a lot of comments, because I'm sure as you get more successful or more achievements, right? There's often a lot of envy and people that are envious, and there's jealousy. So there's that too. Anything that you can speak to kind of give our audience like more of like a
Yes.
big brotherly love. Like if you get this, it's all right, because like keep moving.
So at Breathe Into Life, we love banh mi. Do you know what banh mi is? Do you want to say what it is?
Yes, it is a Vietnamese sandwich. It's also known as banh mi. It's well loved by many, many people. We, Breathe Into Life, loves banh mi. We eat this whenever we have an episode. So today we're going to share one with Dan. And we know that he loves it too. So we're very excited to have our banh mi. On our website, we also sell banh mi. So there's a location in Echo Park.
Yeah.
It's on, when you purchase the banh mi online, you show that to the store, and they'll give you a café soda, which is a Vietnamese coffee. Yes, in addition to your sandwich.
That's amazing.
It's called BIL, Breathe Into Life banh mi.
I mean, I don't do interviews. There's very rare interviews, but the banh mi got me. So
Yeah, is that what it was? We noticed that about you.
We're
gonna bring you through somehow. We know that.
those triggers.
Choose yours.
Perfect.
Yes.
We had a really interesting conversation last time. I would love to, as we unwrap and we eat our sandwich, I would love to go back to this. How did you specifically deal with jealousy or critics? I would love to speak to that. Feel free to have a bite, but at some point I would love to speak to that, because you just sort of like tuned out the noise and the chatter, and you're just like, nope, this is it.
No, it wasn't easy. I still get affected by opinions of people, whether, they could be critically harsh, and you could identify if they're there if they're really out of love, or if they're just there to just kick you in between the legs, just for the sake of.
Yeah.
And I don't want to consider it as jealousy or not. It could be, but I just look at it as they see something that maybe I don't see in perspective, and it's good to digest it. And if it doesn't feel good, just like our body does, you just flush it out. You got to move on. I think our mind is the biggest challenge to ourselves, and it's not a competition to become this superstar. I think it's a personal journey.
Yeah.
And when people ask me, how did you do it? I go, do what? I'm not quite sure what that question means, because it's a personal challenge, and hopefully you do it right. I'm not the smartest person. I didn't have these successes if it's marked by financial success. I got lucky, but you get lucky if you're out there. If you stay at home, the luck really just doesn't come to you.
That's right.
So,
Preparation.
Yeah, so please.
Yeah, please, I'm
have
going
me.
to.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on mindset, because Breathe Into Life is very, big on mindset, because we realize that mindset, having not just a positive, besides positive, just being aware of your mindset, being aware where it's taking you, being aware of, how it's affecting your decision making, right? And so can you speak more to mindset?
Absolutely, and you said something earlier. It's not about like living in this like cloud nine, like everything is wonderful and amazing. It's not that, but it's sort of like when you fall or when you feel yourself, like you said, our minds, our individual minds, that's the greatest challenge, right? Overcoming that. It's when you start to go down the path of negativity, it's that you realize that. Now I've practiced mindfulness for a long time. I've practiced meditation, breath work. That's very powerful for me.
Yeah.
As me, a human, that's just my experience, my journey. But that's not everybody. Then I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that. When I find myself getting negative and afraid or fear comes into my life, or anxiety, I can spot that.
Yeah.
And I can change that and be like, nah, this is amazing. Like, the sun is shining, the sky's not falling, everything is lovely, and I'm really grateful for the gifts in my life. And I think that's something that, what I've noticed in my, travels is that, in my own company, in my own path, is that that's really important to hear that from somebody. And I think we, in our society, we do look at people that are successful financially or that run companies, and we do sort of like, wow, how did that person do that? It's not so much about, they forget the humanity.
Yeah.
It's not so much, but hearing from you, for example, is validating to somebody on the other side that's like, wow. And what you basically just said is like, I just put myself out there and I got lucky.
Yeah.
I did it. I did the work, but I didn't get crushed by failure and defeat. And I think that's really important to like share, as much as that's what we're doing, is breathing life. That's our journey. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, one of the very simple formulas we found, like really trying to basically give birth to breathe into life, is that we've done exercises on our own, right? Like we become more aware of our thoughts, we become more aware of our actions, we become more aware of our reaction, because we don't want to just be the preacher. We want to see, if I do wake up with a to-do list, if I do wake up and like, oh my God, I'm gonna run out of money, or we wake up with like going straight to your bank account and visualizing that dollar amount, right? So the one thing that I have found, and Luis can speak to his, is that like I immediately take my mind and my body back to where I am, whether looking at like the light shining through my window, or like hearing the birds chirping, or smelling something that was from my room.
Yeah.
Because it's like that first glance, or that first glimpse of life that reminds you, and it gets you grounded for the day, right? And so, because those thoughts of like the to-do list or the bank account, oh my God, the sky's gonna fall, those things are gonna take you to a different path for your day, rather than like, wow, this is so nice. I can hear stuff, I can see stuff, and all of a sudden now you're back in your body. And that's like my simple practices. Every time I go into fear or worry or anxiety, I like bring myself back to wherever I am. Oh, this banh mi is amazing.
Yeah.
It tastes nice, it's spicy, whatever that is, or like I can smell the room.
Being
Simple
present.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the simple things.
Yeah. What do you normally do?
I mean, it's simple. It's similar. It's like, I learned to focus on my breath, right? Because that's what you're speaking of, that if you're not breathing, you're not alive. So it's sort of like, okay, that's the simplest way that I could bring myself back and smell or be grateful or use my eyes, whatever it was, at a moment where I felt really bad, like whether it was pain, or I have a condition, for those of you that don't know, it's like, so physical pain is a deal, mobility is an issue, but that's not going to defeat me in going to run my life. It's like, I'm also like very involved, and I want to do a lot but that's my decision. Now, if I play the victim, and if I live in negativity and failure and just overwhelming, then you're not going to do anything. You're not going to leave your house, and you're not going to, you know what I mean? You're not going to get out of bed most likely. And so to me, that's very important.
Sure.
The breath is the way to like, okay, wait a second. Let's recenter. Let's rethink.
Yeah.
Same thing for running a business. Same thing for doing an interview. It's the same. It's really the same thing when I drive. It's really like, that's it. Presence. That's what I do, and it's helped me a lot, Yeah, I mean, it's helped a lot. I'd be curious to know if you have a practice, or if you...
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay, great. I'd love that. I'd love to hear it.
Because we were just talking about, you focus on nature and things that are simple, that God-given things that you had nothing to do with, but you get to enjoy. Those are rewards.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For me, my go-to is making my own bed. Every morning, making sure I make my own bed, because it gives me a sense of accomplishment. And I do my own laundry, because it allows my mind to focus on things that are rudimentary, that I can control, because there's a lot of things you can't control. So pick and choose things that are simple things that you could do, so your mind could subconsciously recycle and reset. Because if you're always thinking about complex things, it can't reset. It goes into this peripheral rabbit hole. And so sometimes just taking a step back and doing something rudimentary,
Right.
cleaning, you hear about these, and people says, I got into this cleaning mode and stuff. Well, it's because then our mind gets to reset.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
It costs you nothing to do.
I love
In fact,
it.
it's good for your life.
Yeah, I actually can vouch for that
Me
because
too.
I
Yep.
love cleaning because of that. There's therapy in that, and I thought I was just like,
Absolutely.
just love clean stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the process of cleaning, right? You're focusing on the moment, and then once you get it all organized and clean, it's such a huge accomplishment. You look
100%.
around, you're like, wow, I did all of this by myself, and you're like sweaty and it's really gross. But by the end of that process, and then during the process, like you start to appreciate the thing that you're putting away. Like,
Sure.
wow, this is mine. Oh wow, when did we buy that? So I vouch for that.
I do too. And my mind has allowed me to solve complex issues by doing very mundane things. I don't know.
Sure.
They're very average.
Like your own meal.
Yeah, cook my own meal, clean laundry. It's like,
Your own on me.
right, and that's how I would come up with a theme. That's how, because I also write music, and so that's how I would do that. Is your mind is solving issues, and I'm certain that translates to running a company or
It
to
is.
do driving to like a supercar or whatever it is. To you're like, well, if I did this, well, I'm gonna let my mind simmer and let my soul simmer.
I think our subconscious is probably more powerful than our conscious because our conscious is distracted in the moment because even the idea of communicating, we're vibrating sounds to send to your ear, and now your ear needs to decipher that and send it back to your brain and undecipher what that vibration means. So the tonality, if I speak louder or less, then all these senses become how you take that message. Where the subconscious, it's not like that. It's a reaction of your mind going through these complex things in the background.
Wow.
And so I get the feeling of it when I do rudimentary things. I don't have to, I guess, this is odd, but I put the energy that I need on my subconscious to do what it needs to do while I'm doing rudimentary things that's giving me positive dopamines of, oh yeah, I folded my clothing, I have nothing sitting in my closet, these
Wow.
little accomplishments.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
can
I
you
love
explain
that.
that again? Because my mind just kind of got it, but I'm really interested. How can you
love
break
that.
that down for me?
I mean, the
So-
way it hit me was, your subconscious mind, right? Not the conscious mind, but your subconscious mind. So it's what's acting in the background, so to speak, is constantly solving things and working and doing things, but we're not actively trying to, in our conscious state, I'm trying to pay my bills or run out and meet this client. I have all these things to do, right? That's my conscious mind. It's getting me there and making sure that I show up clean and whatever. My subconscious mind is dealing with all these things in the background. That's very closely related to mindset and breathing the life, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If we can shift everything from oh my God, the sky's falling
That's the
to
conscious.
right.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's your subconscious. That's your subconscious. That's
I
like
see.
if the sky isn't falling and it's a beautiful day because it's sunny and dang, all these days in Southern California are pretty beautiful. Really, when you break it down.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what Dan just articulated: getting up and making your bed. It's like you already won. You already did something. You already succeeded. Now you're gonna take that to you the rest of the day. Just like if I look at the sun shining, and I'm gonna take that sentiment to the rest of the day.
So we're
Isn't that amazing?
exercising our subconscious mind
Absolutely.
to straighten
Yes.
the ability to be able to appreciate that and really
Absolutely.
hone into the subconscious mind that everything is all right.
Sure.
So you're not abrasive to to a client or to somebody in your company or on the road. It's like your subconscious mind, right, is already shifted, so it's already positive. And that's very much what this is about. It's
Yeah.
just taking. I love that,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
great tool for those of you that are curious where to begin. That's a great tool.
Yeah.
That's a great technique to just make your bed.
For those who may be
Think so.
feeling in that place right now, don't over challenge yourself with the big things. I'm a true believer in mega visions. Do it. But to get there, you still need to walk. So go do your bed, go do your laundry, wash your own dishes. Some of the things that I subconsciously or consciously I pick up in these cues when I have relationships, I look at how clean their car is, or at least inside. Or is there a lot of trash everywhere? These little things I think is not for judgment, but for our own personal position of how our mind is set and organizing. The more clutter you have in your life, the less your brain could actually function at its.
We were talking about that this morning, right?
So we do this practice in the morning when we do a meditation and then a breath work. And sometimes a sound meditation and then yoga. It depends on how much time we have. But this morning we did a meditation on my feng shui. I'm a huge fan of feng shui, and as you use feng shui is basically what you just talked about. It's just getting your life in like an organized manner, so that way there's a flow of energy that can like go through, and that starts with your space, it starts with your house, it starts with your car, right? Because and for me, when I'm really organized, and sometimes I'm like, am I borderline OCD? Because I need it to feel good, and so hence the cleaning. But it helps me with two things. One is that it helps me to be able to reach for the thing I'm looking for very quickly. I know where everything is, right? And the second is like that accomplishment feeling of like, wow, I did that. I filed away all my emails, or like my kitchen, all the Tupperware in one place. So like those kind of things also help the feng shui is that. It's clearing the clutters and the energy to be able to flow that better.
In a physical space, I think that's what you're talking about. So the idea is removing clutter in your mind too, but it's everything. It's holistic. It's everything. So for those, like, I'm not trying to sound wordy, it's just like it's everything. It's everything in your life. Your relationships, your car, your house, your mind, right? It's decluttering so that it's just like really focused and really clear and really precise.
So the meditation that we did this morning was really easy. It was really just like basically breathing into your mind and just like really blowing it out, like as if you're like cleaning your floor, And it was through that sensation that like your mind is now calm and it feels organized,
I'll take it one step further after my delicious bun.
I'm just so glad you like it.
That's so good.
You guys keep talking.
In that meditation, they said to open your eyes and focus on one point. That's like Zen, right? Now they're bringing that into it, and that's a really great way to be like, I'm gonna look at one point and just focus on that.
Laser focus.
And just breathe. That's it. Even you're like, oh my God, I can't do that. Okay, what can you do? 3 breaths? Do 3 breaths. Set it up like, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't cause more stress and more chaos. Just make it happen. Just do it. And I often tell people like, either feel defeated or feel beat down or feel negative. It's just like, just make whatever happen. Oh, I don't know how. I don't even know where to begin. It's like that. I'm not trying to cause more stress and panic. It's just like for you as an individual, it's going to be different than Donna, and me, than Dan. Like it's just going to be slightly different. That's all. Just find that, but don't overwhelm yourself. And I think we as people do that. As humans do that. We, for whatever reason,
there was a incident when I was younger that was a good example of how this came about, which was. I was working on something in my car one time, and I couldn't figure something out about an alarm system. The window door locks weren't working, and I was at it for 5-6 hours, and my dad and mom was watching me outside going, okay, he's suffering. And something that was very powerful that my mom says, hey, go to sleep, tomorrow you'll figure it out. You just need to rest your mind, and things will fall into place.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember going to sleep, and the diagram of what I need to do was, because it was somewhat of a complex diagram of electrical relays. It came to me. I woke up early, went there, and within 15 minutes had it fixed.
There was.
So
right.
that's the power of subconscious, because when we have clutter and we have emotions
That's right.
during the physical part of it, we block the most powerful energy, which is our subconscious being able to calculate. And so every night, every day, with some of the fears and challenges I have, the best thing is all right, gonna go shower, clean up, make sure everything is in order, and get good sleep, because by tomorrow things will be fine.
That's
It
it.
does.
Yes.
You have. I think that's the faith part.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, if you have faith, you actually will rely on the fact that things will come to vision. Not that you have to do nothing, but it'll give you the right proper direction to address those challenges.
So do you consider yourself a person of faith? I'm not talking about but you believe that whether it's like a higher power. I'm not trying to like pinpoint a religion. I'm not trying to just sound divisive in any way. You do believe in that?
Yeah, I think all religions or no religion is about
Right.
faith. If you don't believe, so the term of faith is accepting and believing in the fact that without any proof,
Yes.
Yes.
that a result will resolve.
That's it.
Yeah, that's faith.
We talk about that frequently. Would you like to elaborate a little bit about faith,
Yes.
trust, and faith? Yeah.
You know, I grew up with Buddhism religion, so I always had the belief that things are gonna just, like happen as supposed to. I don't know how that was instilled in me. So I, always had the conviction that something great is going to amount to something.
Sure.
I've had challenges in my childhood, coming from Vietnam, it wasn't really easy,
Sure.
but I always knew that things would be better. Things like everything is temporary. I don't know how that all came about. So now that I have 3 kids, my exes have different religions and I have different belief systems. So I always tell the kids this, I'm not trying to pin you to a religion, but I would love for you to have faith. Have faith in a God that's higher than you, have faith in yourself, have faith in, like what you said, things are going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Without having
Interesting.
proof. That
Interesting, because I grew up in a religion and I was like, and it scared me, right? And it put fear. I was like, oh my God, you're going to burn in hell. I didn't do anything, but I'm like in 1st grade, 2nd grade. How do you know? So you move through your life without that guidance until more recently. In my 40s, I found, oh, wait a second. There is such thing as that. And it's okay. Like, I'm not putting a timeline on anything, and there's no criticism and no judgment. It's just like when it makes sense and it clicks, it does. And you won't ever be redirected, because it's what you know you don't unknow, you can't unknow.
Sure.
And so that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people don't criticize yourself if you haven't found that, or if it hasn't made sense to you. Because I know people that are just like, nah, whatever. It's like a bunch of, but again, when we think of our subconscious minds, it's the proof. Or like I did the other day, an experiment of gravity. It's like, well, if I drop, yep, gravity works. I'm on this planet. There's the universe. It's like, it's really how far do I want to take this experiment? And I think a lot of people, they're looking for that, but the proof is what you believe. It's up to you. It's your own faith. It's like, if you want to put a name on it, put a name on it. If you want to put a person on it, put a person on it. If you don't, don't. It's okay.
Can you share with us, having faith, what has that brought into your life that you can, in your proof, in your own way of proving, my faith brought this to me?
That's a good question. In terms of my personal journey, is the fact that no matter what I accomplish on this earth, it's minuscule, it's trivial. So I think faith will provide you the opportunity to understand that no matter how big of a failure in terms of your career success, all things relationships maybe, that it is very temporary. And so, when we really look at it, and I'm at an older age where I'm starting to understand what my parents used to say. It says, doesn't matter how much wealth or success you have, at the end of the day, we all are going to the same place, and, it's kind of kind of sad thing that we're going to end up 6 feet under the ground, but it's a reality. It's it's inevitable.
Yeah.
So what we do during that period of time, which is going to be a blink of an eye, be successful in yourself. Don't gauge it by wealth. And I've said that to certain people, and they go, "Well, that's easy to say because you have it." I go, "It wasn't handed to me,
Right.
Or maybe it was. Sorry, but at the same time, if you can't enjoy what you have a very little, you'll never enjoy it even when you have a lot. So it's all relative.
Right.
If you can't enjoy the simple things when you don't have wealth,
Yeah.
you're still not going to enjoy it even when you have wealth.
I would love to hear. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that and go deeper into that, because that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, so, when I was in our business, started in 1999, we didn't have money, and we were starting up, me and my partners, and my girlfriend, who's my wife now, went into that challenge of figuring out how we're going to get there, and getting into life, being married, having our first kid coming, our child, and all these challenges of the world. And to say that we had everything, but when I reflect back, the desire felt so much better than actually having it. And I think we all remember buying that shirt or that pair of shoes, a designer something, or a car or something. The journey to get there is actually more fun than actually getting there.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
True story. Yes. Yes. And I want to say that like faith has brought me to here in believing anything I can do, like I can do anything, right? Because it takes you to the next day, to the next month, to the next level, to the next idea, to the next creation. So, and you're right, we're all going to go to the same place. So, and we spoke about this yesterday, is that, there's suffering everywhere in the world, right? People are, dying, and there are diseases. So like what we do is so important because we're the ripple effect of the next person and the next person. And we don't even need to speak. We walk out into the street or we walk into a room and immediately our energy is felt, right? Our vibration is felt. So that's why.
We just experienced that last weekend. I would love to pivot this conversation a little bit to what Dan's doing right now and how that's helping shape what we're doing, right?
Yes,
And breathing
for
life.
sure.
And that we just saw exactly what
We
you
have
just
evidence.
we do. And
Yeah.
people are just like, but it said we went into a room, right? I'm gonna set this up for people. We went to the Illuminate Film Festival in Santa Barbara. We were invited. So we went and Donna had this great idea about like using Berify.io tags. So we did, and she's
Well, the initial idea was to have it stand out from
Right.
the rest of like the wellness space, the the conscious, the
Right.
mindfulness space. So we wanted to show up more ourselves. We love apparel, we love cool stuff,
Fashion,
we
right.
love fashion, we love music, we love art. I know you can relate to this. So we wanted to show up like, with conviction, like this is who we are. So the tag was built into a label that we had made, and it was attached to a unique bag. It was a mesh bag. This is a canvas.
Yeah.
Sorry.
we show up at this event, and the event is all really about spreading love, and it's like shifting consciousness, shifting the ability to send love because you are going to have a ripple effect. You're going to take that to the grocery store, the gas station, on the freeway, whatever, to your job. It's really about entering that space as opposed to like hate, right, and anger, and just like dark, and that was really interesting. So for us, Breathe Into Life, we didn't realize it was going to resonate with so many people because we're just, in a sense, like, yes, we're very lucky, we're very fortunate, but we're very normal people in the sense that we just appreciate the sort of like the rawness of just being alive and just humans, and like we're all different and we're not trying to be a certain way. So when we got to this festival, people started scanning the tags, asking us about the technology, and next thing you know, it's just like, now it's a thing. We got invited to another festival we're coming up, and potential to do a third collaboration next month. So we see that technology has a place here for sure, but it's really about how we use it.
Sure.
You know, and that's, I
Yeah.
think that's
And
really important.
I think what I love the most about it was that it got people talking to us.
Yes.
Sure.
It
Absolutely.
was anybody and everybody. What is this? What are you doing? What does this do? Right?
Yes.
And those are the connections. Those are like the starters, the little, like match. That
The
you like,
engagements, yeah.
Yeah, the engagement, because we could have just stood there all day, right? We could have just
Absolutely.
just
Right.
like trying to sell or display things with a QR code. But I think that's what stood us out from the rest, and
Right.
it was an interactive.
And that's probably one thing about Donna Martin that a lot of you don't know is that she's constantly networking and talking to people and helping
Very
out people, and that they're like, hey, we have this really cool event. Hey, Luis, you want to go? Yeah, let's do this, And so in other words, it's like what you realize, what Dan said and what Donna does and like what they do and what I try to do is just be out there and just, and help and service is like, it's a really important part of this component.
Yeah.
Or it's a very important component to what we're talking about here. I have a little. So we're talking about self-love versus like narcissism versus like overindulgence, and we're talking about that. Oh, like I'm in love with myself. I can do anything, everything. So I have a little bit of a different experience with that I was going to share. That I wasn't even aware that really existed and how powerful that was until it was like. I have to do something, and I have to weather the storm that was being presented to me. And so some of you might be able to relate, but the idea is that was a rock bottom. That was like a really bad point. That was a really difficult time. It was really painful. And so, but to weather that and to get through it is sort of like, okay, the only way was to like be like, no, I'm powerful, and to acknowledge that I'm a powerful person, and that everybody here has power, and I think that's something that we've spoken to everybody. I don't care what your job status, it doesn't matter. It's like we all share a power, an internal power, and that's when I started to understand. First, I started with like, but that's so selfish, Luis. You're just thinking about yourself, and you're doing all those things. And you're going to massage or acupuncture, whatever it is. But then I started realizing, no, it's self-care. I mean, I was like a podcast I heard or an interview I heard, and I was like. They were talking about that. I was like, oh, it's self-care. I'm taking care of myself. That led me to being like loving myself and being like, no, that's just who I am. I'm not for everyone. I'm not trying to be. But the point is just like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with who I am. And I want to make sure that is success in a way, That's sort of like,
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like forget bank accounts and yes, that's really important too, but that's really powerful.
I recently heard of something put into words, but most high-performing people consider themselves frauds.
Isn't it?
And I had to think about it. Well, I'm not a fraud, or I don't consider that, but there is a humility to that because we don't want to take credit for the things that occurred. So go, I don't know how I got here, so I must be a fraud.
Right.
It's almost a coping mechanism of saying, hey, we got here, but it's not because I'm the brightest, smartest person in the world. We've always been on that edge of potentially bankruptcy or failure. But when everything falls into place, we don't take the credit for the fact that it was because of me or that we did it. So we go, holy God, we did it.
Right.
And so that statement of becoming a fraudster is actually a balancing so that you could continue to press yourself to even push the limit even further. That edge, yeah.
I love that. Because there was a quote that was sent to me, I think a couple of years ago, life begins at the edge of discomfort or at the beginning or when you feel really uncomfortable.
Sure.
Is the point.
Yeah.
But that's what we all are. I guess we all take risks, right? Or we do. Like that's just part of the.
It's a
I know
must.
that
Yeah.
you have to, and it's like you're right. I'm always on the edge of something. It could be like bankruptcy. Somebody's pissed off. Somebody, whatever. Somebody's gonna fail or break down, but then it works out.
But
What is that? That's belief. That's faith. That's like trust.
Yeah. Narcissist, and that term is used so negatively. I go, why did that turn into a negative thing as being a narcissist? I understand that there are certain components that the repressed do that to be abusive, but narcissism comes from the idea that they enjoyed themselves and they or he enjoyed himself and he loved the presence of himself to the point where it was their own failure.
Right.
But how do you balance it? I don't believe in any extremes. We live in areas where left and right, there is a middle ground.
Right.
And that balance is so important in life.
Yeah.
I would love to talk a little bit. It's we're not here to criticize, but you touched on something that has definitely come up in my life, and that is extremism.
Yeah.
Extremes. It's like, not here to bash anybody that is on an extreme or in an extreme, but if you are so extremely convicted of one thing besides, like, I'm not talking about success for a minute, but like you believe that these people or this group or this country is out to get you, then that could potentially lead you down a road of like, persecution and like it's mine. I'm gonna demand and be primal, And so what I guess my point is like it's inclusion. That's the opposite of that is where we start to bring people into our conversation and feeling good.
I think it's great to have conviction because if not, what are you in life? You can't just you can't float around like a feather in the air.
Right.
We need to understand our convictions, but have the open opportunity to understand maybe that's not 100% balanced. We go back to biblical terms of being equally yoked. When you find your loved one or your wife or your husband, the term comes from putting a yoke on two beasts or two calves or cows. If one's too strong, you go into a circle or spin. So unless those two animals are equally yoked, you can't go in a straight line. And that's the same thing with extremes. We'll go in circles if we're too far left or too right.
That's right.
And this is actually a great way. I think people have done their assessment of their Briggs-Myers assessment. And it's actually kind of important to understand that because when you go into a team play in work situations, there must be a balance of those personalities. If it isn't, the team goes in circles.
Right.
So we used to give out tests all the time to see how my efficiency model was a team of 5 was the best. For some reason, a team of 5, well-balanced Briggs-Myers, was a very successful team. Less clutter, less arguing. There is always going to be that extreme lion, and let them play that role, but they can't function without the other members.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was your experience like working on teams?
I think the compatibility, right, and like the alignment, it's so important because otherwise you always have one leader, and then the one leader has her point of view, and then the rest are just kind of followers. But if you have alignment, so in Southeast Asia, we believe in signs. I don't know if you've heard of that, right?
It's the same thing.
Right, exactly. So in the West, like they have came up with personality tests, and I think this adoption was like, I don't know, recent, but with ours is
4,000 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I used to work with this woman that she was Vietnamese, and she would ask everybody she interviewed, what's your sign?
Absolutely.
And so like I was like at first felt like uncomfortable. I'm like, I don't know if you should be asking that. That's like an HR violation, right? And she's like, they don't see anywhere in HR list. And like I can't ask that question. So, and I finally understood why she was doing that. Because
Balance.
your alignments, yes, your compatibility among signs, and the same thing as what your testing that you just spoke about is the testing. Because when you have eye to eye, you have the certain amount of drive, that brings you forward versus us going in circles.
100%.
If you are like, the opposite of me, I'm just trying to like balance with you, and that's all we're doing instead of moving forward. So I'm all for that. Like,
Wow.
yes, being in a line and being like, and really joining forces with those that really see and feel your.
Explain a little bit more like what alignment even means to somebody who's like, what is she talking about? You know what I mean?
Do you want to start? Since
Well,
you know exactly what alignment is.
I would love to
In
hear.
alignment doesn't mean that you can't disagree.
Okay.
In fact, you disagree to get to a result, but you don't want two similar MBs out there, because what happens is a conflict, constant conflict of power, possibly. But if you look at the MBs, and I used to use animals rather than MBs. So we used to have the lion, the otter.
Yeah.
So the test created animals because that was nature's compatibility.
Right.
Lions cannot be together in a group.
Right.
Because if they were all lions, they all have their own vision.
Right. Nothing will get done.
And the other animal is an otter. Otters love have fun. They keep the spirit of the group. But if you have otters, no work will get done. and then you have the golden retrievers that were always loyal and supportive of the team, and then you have the beavers that were the analytical ones that just did the work.
Did it? Yeah.
If you have all the same animals in one spot, things don't get done because everybody was watching. Okay, who's deciding what? And beavers, I don't know. I'm just going to build as soon as you tell me what to do.
Right.
So interesting.
So that balance is actually powerful. And when I had the right mixture of those teams, I mean, a team of 5 could do hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue.
Wow.
Whereas if I had a team of 20, they'll be fighting with each other.
So your team of 5, that's essentially like after testing that. What if you don't have access to testing? Is what I was gonna.
Oh, you can do a test. Simple.
Yeah, it's I mean,
Test
I
it.
imagine it being very super easy because now, like, you know, with technology, it's so easy. Really, with at your fingertip, you can just like put in, you know, a few different personality or ask.
Oh, you can do it online right now and associate. Yeah. You guys should do it together.
So in other words, we did. Yeah, we met earlier. We have a funny story. Anyway, but that's different.
That's a different
That's for the younger generation.
Yeah, that's different.
I did talk to my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter is starting to date, right? And I stress that important because, you know, I've been divorced twice and, you know, like those marriages started with love and with like, you know, compassion and understanding, and then we just kind of fell out of place and we couldn't come back. So the alignment and the balance that we've been talking about was that, and I always felt like, well, if you just have love, you're fine, right? And that was like my imagination, or
That's
like
what you're
you know,
told.
yeah. And so my point is, like, if we can give advice to like our younger selves, right? And like as we're building teams for companies, or building teams for the companies that we're working for, or even like having a circle of friends that you want support from, or
I think our Gen Z Alpha are the most challenged. I mean, look, divorce rates are plus 51%, and it's just increasing. And in fact, if you look at some modern nations, their population is declining. South Korea, Japan, and I think the challenge is because there's too many options with technology too. Technology is great for our lives. It's also created pitfalls.
Absolutely.
I think our generation all the way to the next generation don't have they have more challenges than my parents. My mother's still alive, she's 94. My father passed away 3 years ago when he was 94. They had their challenges, fought, infidelities, all this stuff happened, but they stayed together for, 70 plus years.
wow.
How do you do that? And I asked my dad, I remember, and my mother, I said, how did you guys do it? And they said, and even when they fought, because there were times where I said, you guys should get a divorce, you guys can kill each other.
Yep.
And his response to me was, hey, you know, we came through 2 wars, and when you go through those type of challenges, it's not about you know, who did the dishes, who did take out the trash. It was, are we going to be alive tomorrow? So it brings people together when you remember those edges of challenges in life.
Yeah.
If you have challenges in a relationship, I think that's kind of
That's what. Yeah.
it proves that you can overcome the most minuscule things. Our society today, for our Western, their biggest thing is you know, who's going to get I don't know, who's going to win on Roblox or Minecraft right now. And I know that's childish, but I think we're not giving our next generation the opportunity to learn challenges
I totally
and
agree.
resolve it. They came from the COVID era, and so we have
Safe,
a lot
yeah.
of fixing to do or
Agreed.
help. And I saw this one girl on this Instagram feed, and they were interviewing her about dating, and she said something that was powerful, and I hope this goes out there, is that she dates intentionally. And so without intention and without their faith of what that intention of dating is, if it's just for socializing, she doesn't do it.
Yeah.
She's very focused
Yeah.
on purpose and intention. And yeah, maybe that's what we need to teach our generation. Not only our next generation, even ourselves. Are we in a relationship with intention?
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting comment or statement, because I think a lot of people have been sold what is a relationship until you start to wake up, and some of these other things that we were talking about, like self-love, comes to mind, or you start to realize, or you're pulled to do something, you're like, wait, am I really compatible with this person? And that's a conversation. Yeah, that's difficult, but it doesn't mean like you can't work it out with that person or you have to move on. But it can happen. And I think if you feel complacent and stuck and you're not listening, that does more damage in the long run to that individual, you know. And I think that a lot of people, our generation, we just were sold a story that's not accurate.
A lot of distraction, false information, glamorization of what life is like, and the whole internet thinks, hey, everyone lives this. Why am I not there?
Right.
And I hope those who are watching us is don't believe everything you see.
That's
you
right.
know, it's a fantasy in
That's right.
many respects.
That's
But, once you realize that that's your own self-love,
That's right.
yeah, that you're not far behind.
Right.
Those who are better at acting, they're better at acting.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You can't do it all.
And you still
can't do
have to show
everything.
up as
That's right.
yourself, right?
That's right.
In reality,
That's right.
off camera, you have to show up and
That's
you have
right.
to be yourself, and you have to be yourself
right.
for a long time. So
That's right.
get to know yourself, you know, build that confidence, whatever it is that you love, like, you know, build on.
And I love the younger generations of those who are actually out there says, hey, I'll take my backpack and go on a journey, you know?
Yep, me too.
You know, or a lot of people talk about European travel, all these get on a jet and do this stuff. Do you realize how much we haven't even explored on our U.S.
country.
country?
Absolutely. Yep.
There's so many fascinating things I see.
Absolutely.
And you know,
Absolutely.
at my age, I still find new places and go, holy God, where did this come from?
Right.
Absolutely.
And I just,
Love it.
you know,
Yep.
get in your car and go travel or do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things
Love
that
that.
we,
Love
as
that.
Breathe Into Light, we are going to do.
Yes.
We've already done
Absolutely.
a few different places,
Sure.
That's right.
but globally.
That's a great idea, yeah.
So we want to bring this message and really
yeah.
just like go into different countries and
Yeah.
create events, and then also to start talking to people in the way that they're living and how they, you know, stay in, like what their mindset's like, because we get a different global perspective.
That's right. And that spawned from just our love of traveling, just the
Yeah.
two of us. Like I've been to every state, and you know, at some point,
That's
I've been
amazing.
to many continents, and so is Donna. It's like that's really interesting when you start to realize, wait a second, we have a message that, well, how are they doing it? You know, and to really start the conversation.
2 hours away, you have Joshua Tree.
Right.
So
And
different.
I forget, I go there sometimes and I go,
This is amazing.
So different, right?
it's right in our
So
backyard.
different, right?
And I think
Right.
people right here in our vicinity has never
Absolutely.
even been there.
Absolutely.
Go to Mammoth during non-winter times.
Absolutely.
During summertime, Silver Lake, you look in the sky and see the stars and go, we are not alone. It's just amazing. There's things out there that is at our fingertips, and we don't enjoy it. And we try to vicariously live it through our social media.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this as a pivot, but why did you start Berify.io?
Sure.
I'm curious to know a little bit, like, what was the thinking or the thought process that
Yeah.
led you? I mean, clearly you guys are doing a great thing, but like, explain to us.
I mean, the main pillars, you know, some of this idea came from my son number 3, Landon. I realized that his generation, they were so focused on their mobiles, I had to figure out a way to engage them and get back to not only gamification, which is important to them, but also the pillar of life is that we were starting to become disconnected. And I wanted to create 2 things, accountability and transparency. So in the apparel side, our biggest threats were our own factories that could be counterfeiting our products. And as we started seeing the proliferation of counterfeiting, apparel won't kill anybody, but I want to give tools back to society that will be helpful. And so one of our biggest things in validating and transparency authentication was right there, sitting right there, baby formula. Till this day, the baby formula is being counterfeited.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you think that there's people out there that has no scruples and they don't mind hurting other people. And so if I could give a simple tool that is easy to use for a consumer, a mother could check the baby formula with their mobile device to see if it's authentic. One, two is this formula have any recalls? Have you ever seen a recall? Maybe once in a while in some news feed somewhere, but by that time, people are already dead. And, and so I want to give the power back to the consumer mind, and at the same time create what's called a sustainable life cycle. Business has always been linear. We're the brand, the manufacturer, and we're the consumer. At a certain point, there's a fatigue of buy, consume. And I want to actually create a society where we could actually be cyclical and create the ability to be a consumer, manufacturer, advocate, and we call that collaborative marketing. But why can't we create this sustainable cycle? So I had the intention of taking our technologies and tools and give it back to the universities, allowing students to develop our tools into commercialization, creating an endowment for the university. So we're working with UCI, USC to create these endowment teaching programs, especially because of AI coming down the line. Everybody's afraid, I'm going to lose my job. No, you're not. You're going to use these tools to actually create some beautiful things. And so I want a sustainable ecosystem.
So wait a second. So that ecosystem spawned from this. Well, I'm putting that like a
Verify tags.
Similac with Berify.
Yeah.
So that is super interesting. So you went to the universities to have whatever department start working with you guys, and they're doing the R&D, I guess, or the development, or the
commercialization is what we call it. We already built the tools, but our tool's so broad. What we want to do is have the young minds go, where can we take this tool?
Love that.
I give someone a hammer, I can't tell them what to build. It could be a birdhouse, or it could be a mansion, but it could do both.
That's right.
So I want to use the spirit of young entrepreneurial minds, taking technology and taking it to different verticals and utilizing it.
Well, that's sort of what we're finding out. Breathe into Life that's what it's doing. And by default, you thought it was a great idea, and I was like, that's a great idea, Donna. Fantastic.
Talking to people.
And next thing you know,
I'm a big fan because one, it gets me engaged with other people, and two, it's like information at your fingertip. Like if they want to know everything, and we can stay connected, right? And that was the end. Like I really want to stay connected with everybody that I talk to, and so through that tool, we thought, okay, we can just like pass everything out. Everybody knows those are ours, and by the time we come back and say, hey, check your tag, then we're back, right? And so that was the main idea. But the expansion was, everybody at the film festival loved the technology, and now they want it in everything.
They want it in their products too,
right? And this is film.
And they don't realize that this. And we were saying this is very secure, and we understand it because we have we geek out on this stuff, So blockchain technology is being used for this. That's a very secure protocol, right? I understand that, but to the average person, they're like, oh, I don't want crypto on my whatever. It's not. And so that's the thing. The difference is you get in these conversations with people. It's like, you know what? There's people that could probably explain this way better than I could. But I'm here to show you this bag. Isn't this amazing? Scan this.
We hardly talk about the blockchain unless they're into it. But we use it as the blockchain is actually a great accounting tool. It just gives you a decentralized private or public information of accounting. It's a trustless system. We don't need trust. It's 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. And so we use that as a tool for authentication
I love that.
purposes.
Yeah.
But in the future of what everyone talks about Web3, we're ready for it.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But right now, you don't need to know anything about it. You just watch it work.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Yeah, we love it, and everyone we showed it to loves it, and because of that, now we're going to partner with our next or the next event, and we're going to bring that technology, and they love it, and so we're trying to work that. Donna's like active in the manufacturing space. For those of you that don't know, but we are now going to manufacture and hopefully bring Berify to a huge or much larger group, and just keep going. And and that's just like in our space. We do understand that there's all kinds of niches that could benefit from demystification or demystifying this like sort of technology and that exists, and really just embrace it. It's just like AI. It's just embrace it, you know?
Now that you've touched on it, I would love to hear more about how you feel about like AI. I think you just mentioned it because I think one of the hot topics that we've been talking about and also during the film festival is like, you know, we have this fear because we don't understand AI.
Sure,
we don't understand the fast technology, like the fast moving technology that's right in front of us. You know, like my instinct and my intuition tells me embrace it, just like the cell phone, just like the internet, like just because this is like part of like the evolving, right?
I give an example. I think it was right around the late 50s, 60s, and before copy machines, we had hundreds and hundreds of people sitting there typing the same message over and over because we didn't have copy machines. Comes IBM and we have Xerox, and comes copy machines, and we don't need typewriters anymore, word processors, etc. Time evolves, but just because we replace all those typists doesn't mean they died or disappeared. We evolve into other bigger things. Harnessing AI and the technologies, and AI is too broad of a term. It's it's creating artificial intelligence, but the engines that run it, it still takes human ingenuity and creativity. Just like I said, my tools. For Berify, we've expanded our patents to do good things for the world. For instance, we're the only company that submitted a PMTA, pre-market study to the FDA to protect youth from vaping. So that was just it's in the FDA register, it's public information. But our technology uses our tools and our biometrics to allow the vape know I'm an adult or at an age that I should be allowed to use vapes, and keeps it out of the hands of the youth. Those are technologies that go, it's useful. And so these are areas where you're going to see our tools come out in different areas where it's going to affect humans. You guys haven't seen it yet, but on my power side, I can now tap a product and I don't have to read about it. I can ask questions. So we have our own GPT that allows us to ask questions. I tap it on a bottle of water and ask it, tell me where all this water came from.
Nice.
Don't you want to someday be able to tap on that organic food that has an organic sticker? I say, tell me where this came from. And it'll tell you.
You were sort of like demonstrating that. This is the second time we've been here. Last time we were here, you were sort of getting into that. You're working out a few things, but I look forward to that because not only is that going to save time, but imagine like you want to know where something was sourced, or you want to get more information.
Transparency.
Exactly.
And this is where accountability and transparency constantly is the same message. I don't want brands marketing to me and misleading me. We've been done wrong quite often. You know, when we say it's dolphin free and all these messages, these are all marketing tools. I recently heard about our waters, our flavored waters. Thinking it's natural because this is natural flavors. I realized the term natural doesn't mean it's fruit juice. No. It just means that it's naturally derived flavors, which could be synthetic.
And it's a percentage. Take it even further. A percent, like natural flavors. Don't be fooled. It's just a small. I think it's less than 5% actually.
Yeah. So it sounds like we can decide for ourselves whether we can drink it or not. So let's say the company said, "Okay, scan it. It will tell you exactly what it is." You can,
that's right, and that's why the NRA realized that, and they're like, no, Just because we sell guns in America and you have or you have Second Amendment doesn't mean you have to go out and like do something really bad and really violent. And I think it's up to the user to discern. But a lot of people are like, no, I want to be passive. You make the decision for me. And I feel like that's where Verify is sort of like, you don't have to know about all the security and everything that's in the back end. Just scan.
Sure. We live in a life of false sense of security. And the internet and fast data has given us that. We see a headline goes, eggs are bad for you, and we believe it. We need to be a lot more engaged as a consumer and have the ability to test these messages. So the reality is that's what I want to bring. We only bridge that gap between product and the consumer because they have the right to understand the transparency around it, and that's the accountability. If you don't keep the brands and services on the other side, if you don't keep them accountable, they'll do and continue to market and trigger you the way you are. And let me add this. This is important. A lot of people will say, "Oh, our tags are tracking you and they're going to data mine you and stuff." No, not unless you want it to. And I'll tell you the reason why it's a mutually benefit. The brands want to know what the consumer knows. You're creating community. Without that bilateral communication, there's no value. So if the consumer tells the brand that we all like the strawberry flavor, but the cherry flavor is a little bitter, the brands could service you better. But if they never know, they never know.
Right.
Also, we see a future where your health, your Aura rings, wearable tracking, this stuff everybody's fearing. Oh, I don't want any of my information out there. Trust me, your information is already out there.
Right.
But what if the benefit is your health could be now connected back to everything that you're connecting with, and it could advise you
if there's something
if
wrong.
this is good for you or not.
Yeah.
So then why would there be trepidation? Like, why would there be so much fear around, oh my God, like, I'm going to be tracked and then the eye in the sky is going to come, like...
It's a propaganda.
Yeah.
It's a propaganda, and again, the extreme is, oh, China, that's what they do. You can't do anything out there. You have no free speech. So we're not China, but you've got to understand there's a balance again. Mm-hmm. Do you go to a country like China and Shenzhen, the crime rate is down to nothing.
0 point, it's like...
Because within 7 minutes, you will be caught if you do something bad. I get the extremes of that. You're being watched all the time. But there's a balance.
Right.
If we don't keep ourselves accountable, here's the problem. And those people who don't want to be found, why? That's dark web, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, so I go, hey, look, as much as we fear these things, there's a benefit too.
Yeah.
Right.
And technology could help mitigate some of those fears, but the reality is if I'm buying banh mi and I'm allergic to certain things, I need to know, and I want to know before.
So what is the future for Verify in terms of stickers? Not to cut you off. Did you have a question about it?
No, keep going.
So like, is it always going to be a sticker? Do you see the technology evolving into whatever?
Well, it's expanding because we're acquiring companies within our technologies because large language models is very important, which is the advent of the engine for our AIs. I think that's going to be important because we find efficiencies in healthcare, and we've proven that out. Law, I think large language models in law is very important, and I see billions of dollars being raised for it, but we have a different approach to it because it has to fold into accountability. Law, healthcare, public accounting, all these are standard written facts. But we want to know who allowed this information in and out. Just let you know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, all of these systems can't be used for a lot of areas because there's a phenomenon called hallucination. Hallucination happens with all this information with biases out there. So if you ask the question, the system could give you the wrong answer because there may be biases. See, we need to trace the accountability. If I'm a doctor and let's say I'm a podiatrist, I shouldn't be talking about information about brain surgery or oncology. So we need to validate on chain who put the information, whether they are certified or qualified to have that information. And if they're putting out false information, being able to sequester any information that they ever put out there so that we keep people accountable.
So I think that's back to what we're talking about, like breathing to life. Like we're not experts in those spaces. We use some things in those spaces, products, I have help. Sure, I understand. We understand it as a company, but it's like it's really important. I feel like for transparency's sake of transparency and accountability, I can see that is to bring in experts, right? Like yourself, and be like, okay, cool, school us and everyone listening, because that's really important information. Because I think there's a lot of fear around, oh my God, like AI, like I went to a panel, or we went to a panel, and they were talking about it's our collective consciousness. Our collective information. It's like we created AI. And it's like when you look at it through that lens, it's like, yeah, why am I
Right. That
no more
changed
afraid
my-
of
right.
you than AI. You know what I mean?
That changed my perspective, and that changed the way I looked at AI that one day. when
That one
we-
moment. That's it.
Yeah, because
That's right.
you're like, oh wow, it's all of us created.
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are
It's
the-
decentralized.
Right.
It's our hive mind, you know.
But we are at a point where the information out there can be biased. So the evolution is what we call kind of filtered water or lakes of information, where it's sequestered and it's role-based access controls, where the information that resides in that lake is been
Applied
filtered.
that, right.
It's been filtered and non-biased, because once you have bias, it's a problem. But this actually really works well for healthcare. What if we had the best of the best accredited doctors putting research
Exactly.
information in there?
Exactly.
And it can be traceable of
I
how
would
that
love-
got there.
We would love that.
Do you know what that would do? It would bring the best healthcare
Absolutely.
to the remote part of the world.
And like that.
Instantaneous.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like think about like how much time is like people spend traveling to get one opinion by somebody who's like taxed, who's like maybe you're their 200th patient and they don't know.
Yeah.
They got to look up in a journal or look online or whatever. It's like imagine if you could do that.
I don't need to imagine, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna
the
happen.
future.
It's happening now where, yes, we don't have to go to WebMD
Right.
and have disclaimers on it. You can't
Right.
trust it.
Right.
We want a trustless society. And
Love that.
if the way that,
Love that.
I imagine how large language models will happen, it'll be filtered, sequestered information that we can rely on.
Can you speak a little bit about bias? I hate to hog the questions. It's super fascinating
Yeah.
what Dan is saying. So jump in there anytime, Donna. I'm just like, you say so many things that are like so interesting to the way my mind is wired. But you spoke about bias, and I think that a lot of people don't understand that how you are using that term. So I just want to
Biases are opinions, and in fact, do you remember when maybe you don't, or maybe you have? I remember in junior high school or high school, they would put us into these political debate scenarios, and the person who won the debate was the person who was most eloquent and louder. Not whether they were factual or not, they just performed well.
That's right.
And
That's right.
nothing's changed
That's right.
in real life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
those
the
who
bias.
educate and present, and that's their bias.
That's right.
Why do you think every wealth focus on buying media, everything from Twitter, X to
Right.
the Los Angeles Times? Over the history of time, think about where the wealth goes is always to purchase your media. Because you could create your own sentiments and your own biases. So this is where we challenge the world to have AI so that we don't have to be biased. If the system is set so that it is decentralized,
Meaning that like nobody is regulated. There is no. It's like we
no
are
regulating.
controlling that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we are the ones.
we are community.
Right.
Yes.
Community
This
is the
true
most
community.
powerful attributes of it, and Berify does do that. We create community with our tax. It
Yeah.
connects
Evidently.
people.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And it was so clear to us that there were not only were people hungry for that, they were like, "Show us, this is amazing." But you could just see the wheels turning, and for them and their company, their products, or their intellectual property, whatever it was, because they're like, "What?
Sure.
All I got to do is like hold my phone, and
Sure.
now I have my own experience. This is amazing." You know, that's community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to create tools to even out the playing forms. Look, we have so many conglomerates out there. If you want to become a big brand or have even a chance, it's harder and harder more now because
Yeah.
they have more money than everyone. They have the leverage of media.
Yeah.
So therefore, if we could do our small part to bring that power or the tools for anybody to go out there and really challenge the system. Yeah.
I mean, that's very much what we're talking about, like
Yeah.
neutralizing, like, and it starts with like believing and the power that's within you, and the breath that's like being like your way to like anger yourself and then go out and do your work. But that's us, you know. That's what breathing life is. Fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
your wealth of knowledge and
So
your
interesting.
time.
I know, we can just keep going, but we're gonna cut it because Dan has to get to a meeting. We gotta get back to LA, and
Absolutely.
we'll
Thank
keep
you.
this going at some point.
Well, I appreciate you guys your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this.
Of
Please,
course,
it's
no, that
for
is
you.
yours. Yeah, it looks good on you.
Thank you.
We'll speak to some of the Berify folks, but yeah, we want to keep. We'll continue this conversation and keep using the technology. I'm really excited
Yeah.
Thank you.
for you and for us.
Thanks for coming out.